Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black. Get your copy today at your favorite online bookseller. Last week I went on Obsidian Radio in an effort to try to resolve the drama going on regarding this whole passport situation. Unfortunately, many of the black males there were not interested in resolving the situation. Instead, they were so in their feelings about me calling out this false narrative regarding this whole passport situation that they didn't want to come to any sort of constructive resolution or even agree to disagree. Now, as this debate went on, there were some individuals who wanted to make personal attacks at me, saying that I didn't know what I was qualified to talk about as related to this whole passport narrative. Now, I may not have traveled all over the world, but I understand the standard of the living God, and I understand the standard of the Most High. And because I understand the standard of the living God, the Most High, I understand why many of these men are still so upset about my videos regarding the whole passport narrative. And the first reason why many of these men are upset about the passport videos is because they have been convicted in their spirit, because the words that I spoke to them spoke truth about themselves. And when men are convicted in their spirits, that's what leads to them being so upset at an individual for presenting a video about a certain subject. Because men who are not convicted in their spirits, they know that that message does not apply to them, and they can just walk away from that video and move forward. But men who are convicted in their souls, these are men, when you present a message to them, it resonates with them, and it resonates in a way that convicts them in their spirit and lets them know what they are doing wrong. Now, that passport video, that first one I did, I liken it to what happened when the prophet Stephen spoke to those men back in the days of the Bible. Now, when Stephen made his sermon, those people were so incensed because they were convicted in their spirit. They went and attacked Stephen, and then they stoned him to death. But when they stoned Stephen to death, what happened was, after his demise, we got the Apostle Paul, who further presented the gospel of Jesus Christ and presented the gospel of the Most High to the world. So many of these black males, they are convicted in the same way that your people were convicted when Stephen gave that sermon, and it's that conviction that has them all upset and all emotional and still looking to continue a debate, because those points that I made regarding that whole argument of how this passport narrative was false was speaking truths about them, and it was speaking truths core to their soul, and those truths were cutting their soul like a two-edged sword, the same way the gospel cut those men back during the days of Stephen in the Bible. So those black men, they have been convicted in their own spirit. They know in their hearts what they are doing to women in these countries is wrong. They know that the behaviors they're participating in are wrong, and they don't want to take any sort of account to that wrong, acknowledge that wrong to the living God, and repent of that wrong. And because they don't want to repent of their sins, what they want to do is go after me, the messenger, and attack me personally, because they figure if they attack the messenger personally, the message will die out, and then they can go back to what they were doing. And what they want to do is have me recant my testimony so that they can go on, continuing on in their sinful ways. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter what you do to me, that message will still be in your heart, that conviction will still be in your soul, and that conviction will still be a part of you, because now you are acknowledging the sin that is in your life. You are acknowledging that you are sinful, and you are acknowledging the sin that you have committed and still want to try to justify committing, even in the face of being convicted by a follower of the living God, a follower of the Most High. His messenger has sent you a message, and you refuse to acknowledge that message. And when you refuse to acknowledge that message, then whatever happens to you, unfortunately, happens to you, because the Most High sends his messengers to give you a warning. But if you do not want to heed the warning, if you do not want to heed the conviction, then whatever happens to you, happens to you. Now, these black males, as they were so caught up in their feelings regarding that conviction, they wanted to come at me and shame me because they said I do not have a girlfriend. Now, I have not gotten involved with women over the last 30 years, and the main reason why I have not gotten involved with women over the last 30 years is because I have been developing my relationship with the Most High. Now, in the late 1980s, when there were drug dealers and gang members out there, and these black women were involved with these dope dealers and gang members, I ran into a lot of peer pressure from black males back then who wanted to try to shame me back then for not having a girlfriend. And I almost gave in to that pressure, and I almost got involved with women. But when the Most High told me I was not ready for a relationship at 16, in the beginning I did not understand what he meant. But as I got a little bit older, I began to understand what the Most High was saying when he said I was not ready for these girls out here. And I started to understand when I went to Taft High School, and I started to see a lot of those girls in my classes becoming single baby mamas because they were miseducated by your Madison Avenue and your Hollywood to believe that sex is the thing that makes a man, and that for a man and a woman, sex at a young age leads to them having social currency that makes them popular. Now, what I learned from seeing what was going on was that the sex that a boy has at 16 can destroy his life, because once he goes out here and has sex with that girl and she becomes a baby mama, his chances of achieving what the Most High wants him to achieve in this life, he never gets a chance to achieve that at all or pursue the goals that he wanted to pursue. And I wanted to pursue the goals of finding a full-time job, which I'm still working on, and I wanted to pursue my career as a writer. And if I had gotten involved with one of these females, what would have happened was I would have been in the company of the misery of everybody in the inner city, and I would not have achieved what the Most High is still trying to work through me to achieve. But your black males, they don't understand this because they are still living a world life, and they are not living in the world of the living God. They are not following the living God. For them, having a woman is the means of social currency, and for them, having a woman on their arm means having value. And they define their manhood through having a woman, and this is a dysfunctional way of defining your manhood. And this is something I talked about in my book, The Man Crisis, because a lot of males, what they do is they define their manhood through women, but that is not the godly standard of being a man. No, the godly standard of being a man is that you are a man because the Most High made you a man, and because the Most High made you a man, he has standards for you to live by. And I am doing my best to live by the standards of the Most High, the living God, not by the standards of my peer group, because at the end of this life, I answer to the Most High. I give an account of my life to the Most High, and I want to give a good record to the Most High as related to how I live. Moreover, I understand the concept of you will reap more than you sow, greater than you sow, later than you sow, as stated by Charles Stanley. And I understand from what I have seen in the black community This is one of the reasons why we have the Negro children of the corn. We have those children of the corn because a generation put seeds in the ground, and that of evil, because your black females wanted to compromise with white feminists and the welfare state, and many of your black males, they wanted to make a compromise where they could get free and easy sex because they wanted no responsibility for their actions. And as a result of both the black male and the black female making that spiritual compromise, we now are reaping what we sowed in many of these inner city neighborhoods, because many of these black males and many of these black females did not want to take responsibility as related to the standards of the living God, the Most High, and they did not want to follow the living God, the Most High, because the living God, the Most High, He has a standard for us to live by, and when we live by His standard, we become blessed, not by corporate America, not by white supremacy, but by the living God, who is the provider of all resources. And your black male, he doesn't understand how the living God can find a way to provide for those who cannot provide for themselves, and how he can bless those who cannot go out and really do what they need to do. Now, your black male, he sits there and he wants to, again, shame me for not having a girlfriend, but what he doesn't understand, again, is I am following the standards not of this world, but I follow the standards of the Most High. And under the standards of the Most High, as stated in the Corinthians by the Apostle Paul stated in the Word of God, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. And the reason why he said it is good for a man not to touch a woman is because when a man touches a woman, he is in transgression, and that transgression is fornication. And fornication is a sin by the living God for a series of reasons, and as I have grown older over the last 30 years, I have come to understand why the living God says fornication is a sin. Now, the Most High says fornication is a sin because in the Corinthians, because when a man and a woman lie together, the two become one. And as your Ringo, aka Black Male Advice TV, has pointed out in many of his videos, when this man and woman lie together, the DNA of all of those men is bonded to that woman. That's how the two become one. Moreover, the spirit of that man bonds with that woman, because women are emotional, and because women are emotional and they bond with that man in a spiritual way, what happens is these women wind up emotionally connected to that man, and when a woman lies with that man, then she wants to have that relationship with that man, and she wants to deepen that relationship with that man. And when a man and a woman lie together and become one, and then they have this relationship severed, what happens when you do all of these jump offs, all of this smash and dash, and all of this casual sex, is you are doing mental damage to the women in your community. And a lot of these females, I noticed even at 12 years old, were mentally damaged, and I didn't know what was wrong with them, but as I grew older and grew in my relationship with the Most High, I began to understand why they were mentally damaged, and one of the reasons why they were damaged was because of fornication with all of these dope dealers, all of these older guys, and all of these older men who were in their late 20s and even their 30s back in the late 80s. This is why these women were mentally damaged. This is why they were emotionally hurt. And this is why they could not find a man when they got older, because in the spiritual aspects, they could not connect or bond with a man because they had all of this DNA from all of these other men, and they had all of this spiritual energy from all of these other men And all of that DNA and all of those spirits from those other men, what it was doing was creating a spiritual wall that prevented her from being able to connect with the man who she would want to be a husband, and prevented her from being able to bond with that man in the way God would want a man and a woman to bond. So your black woman, one of the reasons why she is so mentally damaged, she is so emotionally damaged, and so spiritually lost, is because she has gone out here and believed the rhetoric of white feminists, believed the rhetoric of Madison Avenue and Hollywood movies, which tells her that sex has no meaning, but does not understand that the Bible has stated that fornication is a sin for a reason, and that reason, again, is because it prevents you from becoming one with your husband. Now, the Apostle Paul also stated that when a man lies with a harlot, what happens is he becomes one with a harlot. Now, this is the other part that people don't understand about the two becoming one. And when a man lies with harlots, he becomes one with the harlot. So he starts thinking and believing like the harlot, and that's one of the things that turns a man into a whoremonger. And your whoremonger male, he is so caught up in his lust for sex that he doesn't understand that for every sexual act he participates in, there's a consequence for his actions. And that consequence is not just physical in the terms of venereal diseases and illegitimate children, but it is also spiritual in that you start to deaden yourself on the inside spiritually, because sex is just not a physical act of penises and vaginas. It is an act, again, that is supposed to be a holy union under the Most High, where a man and a woman come together as one. And as they come together and one and bond as part of his natural order, they begin to do the work under the natural order. But your black male, because he is so caught up in trying to fit into the world system of the white man and wants to be like the white man, what he wants to do is go out here and have all of this sex with all of these women. And what he does when he becomes this whoremonger is he becomes spiritually dead on the inside. And when he becomes spiritually dead on the inside, then what happens is he still continues to look for sexual pleasure to pleasure him, and he looks to find it from different women, not understanding you were supposed to receive that pleasure from a woman under his order, because the women under God's order that you bond with, what happens is when you bond with that woman, you are under God's authority, you are justified by the living God, and the sex you have with her is sanctioned by the living God, and because you are becoming one with that woman spiritually, and you are committing to not just a relationship with the woman, but you are committing to a relationship with the living God, and you are keeping his commandments in loving the Lord with all your heart, soul, and spirit, and loving your neighbor as yourself, and you see your wife as yourself, and you respect your wife because your wife is just like you. This is also something that the Apostle Paul talked about in the Corinthians, and as related to relationships and marriage, because when you come together with your wife, you don't see her just as some woman, you see her as yourself. And you don't want to hurt yourself because your wife is a part of you. And your wife, when she is following the Most High, and she has been taught the precepts as related to being a helpmeet under the standard of the Most High, she doesn't want to hurt you, and she wants to put her service to serving you, because she knows she is not just serving you, she is serving the Most High, and she wants to please the Most High most of all. So both of you are going out here and serving the Most High, and that is the thing that many of these black males, they don't get, because they are living in the world and they are living by the standard of the world, following the false Christ of white supremacy and following the false gospel of Madison Avenue and Hollywood, and the false Christ who creates all of these ideas that tell a black man that a man needs to be a man in order to have sex. He has to be. That's what makes him a man. And for a woman, that for her, in order for her to be this woman, she needs to have a man as a boyfriend, not a husband. And this is what the Madison Avenue and Hollywood teach the black male, and this is what has led to a opportunity to create a fissure between the black man and the black woman. And sadly, when I was appearing on that show, I saw all of the hatred that black men had for black women, and sadly, many of those men don't even understand this is what white supremacists want to see between the black man and the black woman. What they want to do is create this rift between the black man and the black woman, because white supremacy does not want to see the black man and the black woman come together as a family. A point I made in my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. What your white supremacy fears is genetic annihilation, and they also fear competing with a black economy. And when you have black women who hate black men, and when you have black men who hate black women, what happens is you have black people who cannot compete in the American economy with things like black-owned businesses or creating a second economy here in America. No, what we have are a bunch of poor, desperate people who are scavenging to live a life where they have to take the scraps and crumbs from a modern-day slave master's table. And because those black males and females think that they're living a certain way, that they think that they're doing all right, but in actuality, there could be a far more abundant life for them if they follow the standards of the living God and the standards of the Most High. But because many of your black females have been taught religion, they don't understand the living God. They don't understand the power of the living God. They don't understand how great the living God is, and they don't understand why we call him the Most High. This is one of the things that leads to a lot of black women being lost, but many of your black males, they are also wandering in darkness as well, and your black male, he is wandering in darkness looking for this love that only the Most High can give him spiritually, that he needs to share with the black woman, but because he thinks love is equated with sex, this is why your black male also believes that being a whoremonger is something that is natural. But being a whoremonger is not something natural. This is something that is caught up in the emotion of lust. And when you are caught up in the emotion of lust, it is all about your short-term pleasure and not about building anything long-term. And when I was in that debate, there was all of this negativity regarding building. And again, Satan does not want to build anything. All Satan wants to do is destroy all that's around him. And what he wants to do with the black male is make him believe that building in his own community is bad and that he needs to go elsewhere, because if he goes elsewhere, things will be better. Well, things will not be better, because the heart of the black male is still the same, the spirit of the black male is still the same, and the soul of the black male is still the same. It is still corrupt, it is still living in sin, it is still wandering in darkness, and when you are wandering in darkness, you will never find the light. So your black male, they're thinking that, oh, these black women are so bad, and that these black women are so terrible, and their ratchet behavior is a reason to go get a passport and go overseas. But this whole argument falls completely apart when you take a critical look at your black male from the perspective of the Most High, and you take a look at the black male from a spiritual perspective, because a spiritually lost man cannot go from one place to another, because the big problem with the spiritually lost black male is himself. Your black male is spiritually lost, and he's thinking that he can go get his passport and go overseas to find these foreign women to find so-called happiness, but he will never find happiness, because happiness, or as what we call it, perfect peace, comes from within with the living God. Because when you are a follower of the living God and you have a God center, then you will find that perfect peace, because you know that the Most High loves you, you know that the Most High cares about you, and you know that the Most High has the very best for you in this world, and that the Most High wants to give you the very best, but he wants you to give you the very best on his terms and in his time. So the Most High, he has what is here for you, but he has a time for it when he is ready for you. But your black male, because he is so caught up in his feelings and is impatient, he wants it now, and he wants it because he wants the validation and acceptance of those white people and those non-white people in the world. And this is what relates to him having these relationships with women. He wants to have a woman, not a wife, and he wants to have women because he wants to sate this lust inside of him for sex. And what he doesn't understand is that lust can wind up destroying his life. For a whorish woman, a man is brought to a crust of bread. And many of these black males who have gone and got their passports, they have been brought to a crust of bread, like your Dr. Jonathan Farley, economically, and many more have been brought to a crust of bread spiritually. Because when you go out here and you're just looking for sex with women, what you're doing, again, is you are being a whoremonger. And this free and easy sex that your black male wants, this is why his community has been brought to a crust of bread. Because he wants to talk about how bad these black women are, but these black women are this way because your black male refuses to take the lead in his own community. And your black female, she behaves this way primarily because your black man refuses to be a leader. Your black man refuses to take responsibility. And your black man, what he wants to do, because he wants to continue getting free and easy access to sex with women, what he wants to do is create this covert contract with many of these black females out here where he gives her a pass for all of her irresponsible, reckless, and egregious behavior, allows her to go out here and have illegitimate children to get on welfare, allows her to go out here and wind up on these government programs, allows her to go out here and play the strong, independent black woman. He allows this to happen because he wants to continue getting free and easy sex from black women, and as long as the standards remain with no standard, he is allowed an opportunity to go out here and have that free and easy sex with all of those women without any sort of accountability to the Most High, without having to take any responsibility for his community, and for him to not have any sort of accountability to the Most High under the defined standard of marriage. That is what your black male wants to get out of this covert contract with all of these so-called ratchet black women. And as the leader, he is the one who is supposed to know better, but he doesn't want to acknowledge the Most High and his standard because he believes that the free sex he is getting has more value than his relationship with the Most High and following the standards of the Most High. That is what your black male believes. And then after he goes out here and turns the American black female dysfunctional with his whoremongering, then what he wants to do is go get his passport and go overseas and then continue being a whoremonger in another country and telling the lie to himself that these women in this foreign country are better. But these women are not better in these countries. What is the problem is, again, the spirit and the heart of this black male. And because his spirit and heart are lost, that's why he goes to these other countries looking for this love from this woman when he actually needs that love from the Most High. And this hatred that he has of self is another thing that drives him, because he hates this black woman so much that he wants to go overseas to find this foreign woman to find love. Again, the same love that he needed to find from the Most High from minute one. He doesn't want to acknowledge the Most High. What he wants to do is go overseas in his lust, looking for this free and easy sex again, now that because he's corrupted his own pool of women, not understanding that if he goes over there, he is just going to find the exact same thing, because all he's going to do is go from one area filled with corrupt women over to another area filled with corrupt women, because what he doesn't understand is the same pool of women that he's going to are the same type of women that he's attracted to. And yes, those women are foreign, and what they will do is put on a nice face for him. They will acquiesce to him, be nice to him. And what he doesn't understand is these women will use him in the exact same way he used those women. So he reaps what he sows, but he doesn't understand that he is reaping what he sowed. And this is the bitter harvest that the black male isn't really understanding as related to what's going on with him and his whole passport narrative, because you're never going to get better until you look to make efforts to better yourself. Now, your black man doesn't want to better himself again because he believes he is receiving benefits under the world system of white supremacy, in that he can go out here and have all of the sex that he wants with no sort of accountability or responsibility for his community, or have any sort of accountability or responsibility to the Most High. Unfortunately, this is the delusion that your black male has been taught, and this delusion is something that he doesn't understand will be the thing that eventually leads to his destruction. Because your black man, he's thinking that he can go on without any sort of accountability or responsibility for anything, and that he's not responsible for the state of his community. But the whole thing is, you will again reap what you sow, later than you sow, greater than you sow. And a lot of black men, they don't understand this concept of the seeds you put in the ground today turn into the harvest of tomorrow. When you put seeds of whoremongering in the ground for today, then what they turn into are your children of the corn, your damaged, dysfunctional females, and your destroyed communities. And the reason why that is done is because these are the tares that the black male puts in the ground, and these tares come back and they give you something that does not allow you to have anything abundant. Now, your black male, he will sit there and talk about how he's not responsible for anything, but that's the standard that white supremacy wants the black male to believe. As a follower of the Most High, I understand that I am responsible because I follow the Most High. I follow the standards of the Most High. I follow the rule of the living God, and the living God made me a steward over this earth. And as a responsible steward, that was one of the reasons why I made the video talking about why this passport narrative was false, because I did not want to see black men and men fall into one of Satan's pitfalls in believing this lie that the devil told them, that if they go get their passport and go overseas, they will go and find this so-called better woman. And how can you find a so-called better woman when all men and women have been born in sin, shaped in iniquity from the transgression of Adam and Eve? How can you find better? When you take a critical examination of the gospel and compare it to this passport narrative, you see how easily it is refuted by the gospel of the living God. Because the living God does not lie, because the living God is not a man. He is the creator of us all. And if he sees men born in sin and women born in sin and shaped in iniquity, then how can men and women who were born in sin and shaped in iniquity find someone better than what they have right there? And again, if man is the leader of the woman, then how can a man go out here and say that the women in his community are bad like black men are, and are so impossible to deal with like black men have said, when the problem, when you look at it critically, is if God made you the steward over that woman, he made you the head over that woman, and that woman is out of control, it says more about you than it does about the world around you. It says that your black man is not a good steward. He is not fit to be a head as related to the standard of God, because if he cannot get his own woman under God's natural order, then he is a weak man. And when you look at your males who have gone out here and gotten their passport and talking about going overseas, and you look at them from a biblical perspective, these are some of the weakest men in our society. And the reason why they are the weakest men is because these men don't want to take responsibility as the Most High has insisted they take responsibility. What they want to do is run from their responsibility because they believe that they have no connection to their communities, and they believe they are individuals in the same way that your Orenthal James Simpson thought he was an individual. And your Orenthal James Simpson was a textbook example of what happens when a black male thinks he is an individual and not connected to the group of black people. And your men with your passports are the exact same thing, believing that they don't have no connection to their communities, no responsibility to their communities, and no part in their communities. So this is, and because their communities are so bad, they can just go and leave their communities. But the whole thing is, you want to leave, you want to run, and you want to run because you don't want to take responsibility under the standard of the Most High. You're not running from this black woman. No, you are running from the living God, and you are running from the responsibilities that the living God has given you. This is the thing that has the black male completely messed up as related to things. He looks at things from a world view, not a spiritual view. And because he looks at things from a world view and not a spiritual view, this is what has him really all upset and emotional when I make a video talking about how this passport narrative is a false narrative. And this passport narrative, again, is a false narrative when you look at it from the perspective of a follower of the Most High, because again, how can you go from one place to the other when the problem is you at the end of the day? And the reason why it is the black man at the end of the day is because the black man doesn't want to acknowledge the sin that he is living in. He doesn't want to acknowledge the lies that he has been told. And because he wants to continue living in his own fantasy ideals, this is why he wants to get his passport and go overseas, because he has believed the lie that white supremacy has told him about black women. And your black woman, in a lot of cases, has bought into these lies as well. And because both of them are buying into lies, this is why we have all of these struggles in the black community, because your black man, He just doesn't want to lead. And your black woman, she doesn't want to follow. Neither want to follow God's natural order. And that's why you have the black community brought to a crust of bread right now. But your black male, what makes him dangerous is he's still got this corrupt heart, this corrupt mind, and this damaged soul. And he thinks he's going to go from one place to the other. But only thing that he's going to do when he goes to these other places is participate in the same whoremonger behavior he participated in America. And what he's going to do is continue to go out here, and I'm going to take another, again, from Ringo, smut out all of the women and in those countries. And what he's doing in those countries is the same thing he did here in America, damaging the spirits and souls of those women and making it where they wind up not being able to bond and connect to have a relationship with a husband. Because those who participate in fornication, what that does is it's not just a sin against God, it is a sin that you participate against your own body. Because as your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, what they are is a place for the living God to dwell in. Because when a man gives his life to Christ, God places his spirit within that man and that woman, and that allows them to have that connection to the Most High. But when a man lies with a harlot, he becomes one with that harlot, and while he gets some physical pleasure in his body, he turns his body into a sepulcher of dead men's bones. And what happens is, when he passes that DNA onto the next woman, he turns her into a sepulcher of dead men's bones. And what happens when she becomes a sepulcher of dead men's bones is she winds up not being able to have that emotional, mental, and spiritual connection with a man who would be her husband. She winds up not being able to have that spiritual bond with a man who would be her husband. And she winds up not being able to become close to that husband in the way a helpmeet becomes close to a husband. Now, your black male doesn't understand this, but as a follower of the living God, I understand this. And because I understand this, I also understand that this is why a black man must be responsible with his seed, and he must be responsible with who he chooses to be his helpmeet. Because a man has to understand that when he is out here and he's thinking about pursuing a relationship, he has not only a responsibility to himself, he also has a responsibility to the Most High, because as his steward, he has to understand that when he goes out here and he's thinking about relationship with a woman, he cannot go out here and just pick random women to fornicate with, because when he goes out here and he puts DNA in those women, he is forming bonds with those women mentally and spiritually, and that those bonds can either grow with strength through the love of the living God, or they can wind up creating damage that mentally damages this woman, the way many black women who bought into feminism and Madison Avenue and Hollywood's ideas of free sex wound up getting damaged. Because with each sexual act they have, what happens is those bonds between men and women, they wind up becoming further severed, and an emotional wall winds up getting put between the man and the woman, in that as their bodies no longer become temples of the Holy Spirit, but become these sepulchers of dead men's bones. And again, when a man lies with a harlot, he winds up becoming a whoremonger, and this is why it's not good for a man to lie with a woman, as the Apostle Paul stated in the Corinthians. And me, with that understanding of the Most High, as I was starting to grow in Christ at 16 years old, the Most High, when he told me that I wasn't ready for relationships, back then I didn't understand what he meant back then. But as I have grown older, I have come to understand what the Most High meant when he said that I was not ready for a relationship with a woman. And now that I have come to that understanding, and after I did this Obsidian appearance, I understand why the Most High says fornication is a sin, because the Most High wants to preserve sex for the marriage. He wants to preserve that relationship so that the man and the woman can come together under his union. And many of these males, they were literally trying to mock me for not having a girlfriend, but I look at my life not through their lens, but I look at it through the lens of the Most High, the living God, the man who I serve, who is not a man. I serve the Most High, and under his standard, I am following his tenets, I am following his precepts, I am following his rule. And if he tells me it is good for a man not to touch a woman, then I am doing right by his standard. Because under his standard that I am following, I am not the one out here who is smutting out our women and corrupting them. I am not one who is doing damage to those women's minds, their hearts, and their spirits, and I will not have to answer for that when I take the judgment from the living God and take an account of my life. That is one thing that I won't have to do, because if I sit here and I follow this standard of the Most High, then when my life ends in this world, I can go back to the Most High, and he will know, because he is always watching, that I did not participate in that act of fornication and destroy the spirit of our sisters out here. I did not go out here and corrupt many of these women and destroy their souls. I did not damage our sisters out here and turn them into the mentally ill, what we call ratchet black women, and corrupt their minds and their souls. I wasn't responsible for that, because I followed the standard of the living God. And again, I was under pressure for years, and again, I stood up to that pressure because I had the Most High with me, and the Most High will look out for his. Now, many of these black males, I've been getting comments where these guys were shaming me, talking about, we bought you a computer and you should stay, and I should stay silent because they bought me a computer. But again, the Most High is the one who facilitated everything, and the Most High is the one who provides for me. Even though I have been out of work for 10 years and I have not gotten the resources like I have wanted, when I really am looking at it now, I see how I have grown spiritually in coming to understand how the Most High works in some ways. I'm still not there yet, but I understand that the Most High is the provider of all resources. The living God is the provider of all resources, not just black men. And that your prominent black men, as I saw on that show, a lot of them, they are caught up in their hubris, and they think that the world is all about them. And sadly, even though they have become convicted, they are still in their hubris, and they have not really understood what the Most High is trying to do with them. Because the Most High, what he wants you to do is he wants these black men to come to him and acknowledge him as the provider of resources, the ultimate authority, and the creator of the universe. But your black male, he does not want to acknowledge the Most High and his power. Instead, what he wants to do is get emotional and attack the messenger again when he gets convicted, making personal attacks at me and trying to talk about my personal life when they need to start focusing on their spiritual life. Because that black male, his spiritual life is one that is in shambles, and your black male, he does not want to get himself in order as related to the Most High. And your black man, what he doesn't want to understand is, if a black man does not want to get himself in order with the Most High, after his messengers come to him, after his prophets come to him, then comes the judgment. And when the judgment comes, it's not going to be pretty, because if the Most High has come to you, and the Most High is a very patient and long-suffering God. He is a very patient God. And if you do not want to acknowledge his servants, his messengers, when they come to you, then woe unto you, because then you are going to suffer, as you will reap more than you sow, later than you sow, and greater than you sow. And while these men may call me a hermit, I am no hermit. I am a servant of the living God. I am a follower of the Most High. And I look at my life, again, by His standard, not theirs. And under the standard of the living God, I am here to do His work, and I am here to meet His standard. And again, all of my work is related to His work on this earth. So I do not judge myself by the black man's sinful standard. I judge my standard by the Most High standard. And by the Most High standard, when I made that video, I may not have been so-called qualified on your so-called passport narrative according to the eyes of your Baba, but I was qualified by the standard of the Most High. And under the standard of the Most High, this narrative is a lie. And as a follower of the living God, I could not let a man go on believing a lie, because as I love the black community as I love myself, and I want the black community to have the truth, just as I would want to be told the truth about something. I would not want young brothers and sisters walking around believing a lie and believing in something that I know is true. And if I know better, then I need to tell people better, because according to my Lord, He says that those who know and do not tell, they will be beaten with more stripes, and because those who don't know, they would be beaten with fewer stripes. But those who do know better and do not say anything willfully and intentionally, these men will be beaten with more stripes, because these men had the knowledge, these men had the word, and these men refused to say anything because they wanted validation and accolades from men, and not understanding that the living God is the ultimate provider of resources. The living God can bless a man out of nowhere. He can make a way out of no way, and Yahweh can make ways that I would never even think about, and bless me in ways that I couldn't even think about. And when I made that video, again, I was thinking about the living God, and I now know that if I want to continue on, I cannot waver, because your black male, many of them, while they may be some of them damaged, some of them deranged, and even some of them psychotic, I have to continue on, because the living God wants this word out, because He wants this truth brought to the black man, because the black man has been wandering in darkness for over a decade, believing that he can go get a passport and go overseas, when in actuality he needs to get himself right spiritually, and he needs to get his soul right as related to the living God, because you cannot run from the living God. You can get a passport and go from America to the Philippines, the Dominican Republic, Colombia, Africa, but you cannot run from the living God. You cannot escape Him, and whatever lesson He wants you to learn, you will either learn it here, you will learn it in Dominican Republic, you will learn it in these foreign countries, but you will learn His lessons. And if you do not want to learn His lessons, then He will make you suffer the consequences for not listening to His servants, not listening to His messengers. And those who are convicted, they are convicted for a reason, and they are convicted because they know in their heart of hearts and their soul of souls, the words that I spoke in that first video and the others behind it were truths. And this is why they called me an authority, because I was not speaking from just my own words. I was speaking from the authority of the Most High, and that is the thing that has convicted these men, and that conviction is the thing that they cannot shake, because this is why these black males want to keep this whole passport argument going, because they don't want to deal with the conviction in their souls. They are still in the world, still in their feelings about the world, and they are still seeing only a messenger, but not heeding the message that has been presented to them. And because they don't want to deal with the things that are convicting them in their spirits, this is why they want to keep things going, like this one of these individuals on that show, who I will not mention, who wanted to try to talk about how I was some sort of eunuch. No, I am no eunuch. I am a follower of the Most High, again. And as I follow his standard, I have nothing to fear as related to anybody, because if I follow his standard and I am not out here doing what he says is a sin, then I am no eunuch at all. I am a man under the standard of the Most High, and men who follow the standard of the Most High and serve the standard of the living God. We are not any sort of eunuch. We understand the value of our seed. We understand the value of a bond between a man and a woman, and we understand how important it is to protect that bond, because in order for me to have a bond with a wife who will be my helpmeet and support under God's natural order, and to have a family under God's natural order, a man must be spiritually right. And in order for me to be spiritually right and to stay in my relationship with God, I have to maintain certain standards. And this is what I talk about as related to standards. The one thing that your black male fears more than anything, because under a standard, he cannot have the covert contract where he can be the whoremonger and participate in these acts of fornication with these women. When there is the standard of the Most High, there are rules for a way a man is to conduct himself on this earth, and those rules are consistent because they are established by the living God. And this is the thing that your black male fears more than anything, because he knows that with those rules, he cannot get away with all of the irresponsible behaviors he participates in and he gets away with under your white supremacy, where they use him as a buck and they use him to go out here and participate in these acts of fornication here and abroad, something he believes he benefits from, but something that is used to destroy him spiritually and destroy his community. Because when your black man refuses to take responsibility for himself, that trickles out to how he sees his community, how he sees his world, and how he sees the people in his world. Because your black man does not want to take responsibility, because he believes that somebody else will take responsibility for him. And that is one of the worst ideas that has prospered over the last 50 years under feminism and the single mother household, is that somebody else is going to do for you what you were supposed to do for yourself and what you were ordered to do as a steward of the living God. This is what's gotten the black man messed up, is that he does not want to be a steward and he doesn't want to be responsible, because he fears that he won't be able to get what the devil has told him will be good. But what he doesn't understand is that all of those things, that fornication, that whoremongering, all that does is lead to the thorns and briars, which create children of the corn in not only America, but also creates those children of the corn abroad. Because without that father who has that direct connection to the living God, then what happens to those black children is they become just as lost as many of these black males were in these single mother households, and they get lost and dysfunctional just like he was lost, and again creating more tares that will wind up in the oven at the end of this world. Because again, when a man refuses to acknowledge conviction from a soldier of the Most High, then he is not at war with Sean James. No, he is not at war with me. He is now at war with the Most High. And when you are at war with the Most High, you are guaranteed to lose. This is all I'm going to say from here on in about this passport narrative, and this is going to be my final video on this passport narrative. Now, if you want to see me make more videos about other topics, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you can click the link in the description box to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella. Discover the dark side of love in this goth and lovely romance with Spinsterella. Get Spinsterella in paperback and e-readers at your favorite online bookseller today.